Okay, we're going to get started here. I want to say hello to everyone and thank you for joining us. We welcome you to the Tesla Science Foundation Nikola Tesla birthday celebration. We want to wish a belated birthday to Nikola Tesla and share with you some of the work in the Tesla community. I am so happy to have this format with you to join as a community of learners. We want to talk about our work in education with the Tesla Science Foundation. We want to share this new Zoom format with you to bring the latest in scientific and artistic innovation. Our work and mission is grounded in the search to bring equity and energy access to the world, as well as to inspire innovation in all fields and benefit humanity. And to this end, we would like to play for you a recording of our Declaration of Energy Independence, which is one of the grounding tenets of the Tesla Science Foundation.
When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for the people of Earth to dissolve the relationships, habits, and thought patterns that have bound us to an unsustainable energy paradigm, our conscience compels us to state our grievances with these outmoded systems and to unanimously declare our intentions for the future of free energy.
We hold these truths to be self-evident that in our modern age, all means of energy production are not equal, some being polluting, limited, non-renewable, being controlled by corporate-driven profit motives,
while others are clean, abundant, sustainable, and able to be made freely available for the betterment of all people.
That human innovation and creativity has excelled beyond our current methodologies of energy production. That the current energy paradigm is ecologically unsound, economically unfeasible, socially divisive, and morally bankrupt.
That dependency on our current energy production methods has led us to the increasing environmental degradation of our living planet.
And to growing systematic mentality of scarcity, lack of fear, aggression, and imperialism. That free energy technology has been developed and suppressed for over a century, and we need not be dependent on non-renewable energy for a moment longer.
That the time is now for us to develop means of energy production and distribution that utilizes the inherent abundance of nature itself.
That as stated by the great scientist and inventor Nikola Tesla, science is but a perversion of itself,
unless it has as its ultimate goal the betterment of humanity.
That whenever any energy model has been perpetuated toward a system of control, limitation, and the stagnation of humanity's collective evolutionary progress, it is the right and duty of the peoples of all nations to abandon the outmoded technologies upon which such systems are built,
and transition toward those which are clean, renewable, sustainable, free.
We, therefore, the free people of Earth, in good conscience, assemble, appealing to the supreme order of nature for the manifestation of our intentions, do solemnly declare
that in our lifetimes, through our continued dedication, ingenuity, and inspiration,
we will bring to fruition a new energy paradigm,
one in which empowering advancements in technologies are made widely and freely available to all peoples in the service of human potential,
and for the support of this Declaration of Energy Independence,
for the firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes,
and our secret honor.
My name is Ashley Redfern. I'm the executive director for the Tesla Science Foundation, and I'm particularly involved in the education aspect of the Tesla Science Foundation. Everyone involved in the Tesla Science Foundation education team are volunteers, and all of us try to encourage innovation in our own fields in the legacy of Nikola Tesla. Our Tesla education group pays tribute to Nikola Tesla in a variety of creative forums. At Delaware County Community College, Professor Brian Yetzer had students in the spring motion graphics class create animated shows for the Tesla Science Foundation. I would like to turn things over to Craig DeVideo, who is the director of Tesla Talk TV, as well as a longtime participant in the Tesla Science Foundation. He is an educator and a media specialist, and I am excited to have him present his ideas to you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first ever online Zoom-based celebration of Nikola Tesla and his birthday today. What a wonderful time we're going to have, and what a wonderful opportunity this technology presents. In many cases, it's here, this technology is here because of Nikola Tesla himself. I was proud to be involved with Professor Yetzer in a project he gave students at a local community college he was teaching at last semester during the COVID crisis, which we're all still in, of course, at some level. And he gave the students an assignment to create animations, titles, lower thirds, bugs, full screen graphics that relate to Tesla and our organization. So what I'm going to show you now is 3 or 4 or 5 examples, short of course, that are projects that the students created. Incidentally, as a little bit of background, I'm pleased to be here and part of the Tesla Science Foundation. I got involved in the year 2010 and I got hooked, and I've been here ever since. So what a great group of people. Here we go. I'm just going to show you a few examples. These are animations and things that relate to the Tesla Science Foundation. The students made the graphics you'll see at the bottom of the screen in most cases. So this is a student who decided to make a lower third that we're going to be using from this point on. This is a straight intersection of art and science, having students get the chance to learn about Tesla, what it means to be part of the solution, not part of the problem, and helping our organization tell the story of Tesla at a higher level. This takes a little bit of time for me to load these video programs, just a couple of moments, but you'll see each one of them playing out. We're extremely excited and proud and so happy that the students engaged with our organization to help us continue the effort to talk about who Nikola Tesla was and what he meant for society and what he currently still means for our society. So these are just a sampling, a smattering of these video programs. Some of these are actual clips that were pulled from our conference that happened in January of the year 2020, right before COVID really hit. So these are just examples of titles and lower thirds and the bugs and the creations that these students created just for the sheer fact of showing their talent and how they had an interest in our organization and how it then eventually inevitably helps the world. So I'll show you 2 or 3 more, and then I'll hand it back over to Ashley, and then we'll continue forward. These are all wonderful. I'm very proud to say that I was also an instructor this particular semester at another college in upstate Pennsylvania. We did not take on a project for the Tesla Science Foundation this particular semester, but I'm bringing the Tesla Science Foundation to that college soon. I was an instructor at the Art Institute of Philadelphia for many years and for almost 28 years, and we dedicated many video programs to the Tesla Science Foundation, helping them tell their story. And I'm so happy to help convey who Tesla was, what they're about, and how he's still relevant. So all these artists made all these graphics for us to show and to place in all of our video programs this point on. Owen has a very complicated video, which I think is extremely cool to look at. He really took it upon himself to do something special. You can see how some students really fell in love with the Tesla idea and really engaged with the inventiveness and the inventions and tried to use things that Tesla actually invented as he continued his progression in science and discovery. So I do want to thank all the students who engaged in the creation of these wonderful animated title sequences. And at this point, I'm going to hand it back over to Ashley, and then we'll continue forward. Thank you.
Great. So that was an example about how anyone in their work can choose the theme of Tesla to both expand on giving people access and exposure to the legacy of Nikola Tesla, as well as innovate in their fields. And we wanted to feature the student work because really it is the work in students, et cetera, that are helping us move things forward. I am the volunteer executive director for the Tesla Science Foundation, but I do work with actual schools in Philadelphia. I'm the executive director of American Paradigm Schools, and we service 4,800 students in Philadelphia. We're a public charter schools. And the next piece we want to show is from the January conference that we had, and I know some of you were there and some of you could not attend. And we just want to highlight for you the CEO from Tacony Academy Charter School, which is a public charter school in Philadelphia that also hosts Tesla clubs. And we want to show for you the commitment of some school administrators to have Tesla clubs and programs within the school community. As we know, Tesla has been not included in the traditional curriculum. So Tesla Club is one way that we have innovated to decide, instead of taking the time to make sure that we can get through any kind of bureaucracy of adding things to the actual Common Core curriculum, that Tesla Club could keep the work going after school or in school at club time and continue the work of Nikola Tesla. So I want to show you the video presentation of Mr. Thomas Scheid, the CEO of Tacony Academy Charter School in Philadelphia.
It's an honor to be here and to take on the reins of Tacony Academy from Ashley. When I got to Tacony last year, I'd been in other schools where STEAM was trying to be implemented, and what was really in place when I arrived was came from the work that the Tesla Science Foundation worked with Tacony in the past, where the idea of innovation and bringing the different subjects together for projects, students to drive student interest, that led to the formalization of STEAM in our school day. So on Fridays, our art teacher, technology teacher, problem-solving teacher come together and work on units of study with each grade. So the entire school is cycled through this program. And the two areas that really connect to Tesla is the ones that are identified around electricity. We also have a unit where students build, design a knee for prosthetics, which is really leading to robotics. So this program at the elementary school, so we're a K-12 school, is now led into a development of an engineering program at our high school. So, and I'll just say that finding Tacony is just an extension of my interest in Tesla, which has been with me for many years. So I'm lucky to be part of the school and the organization. Thank you.
All right, so if you just give me a minute to share my screen, I'm going to go over some of the work of the Tesla Education Group. The Tesla Science Foundation has participated in Tesla Club, creating the Tesla curriculum, and as you heard read today, the Declaration of Energy Independence. We have participated in community events. We have fostered book clubs as well as materials for people to use in the education setting that are innovative. We have hosted invention and family nights for students in schools in Philadelphia. We have provided materials as well as events. You will see up here in the corner the Tesla chess set created by Brian Yetzer, which is a 3D design individualized chess set, as well as other equipment and challenges that we put forth for students in Philadelphia. And right now, what I want to talk about is our movement towards some virtual programming, because in the past, we have always done in-person community events at the Franklin Institute, in Philadelphia, various schools, various community events. We want to be in person with you all. Although we know we cannot be face-to-face with everyone at this time, we don't want to stop our work. And we want to look at this as an opportunity. I saw people posting that they're in Belgrade, in Washington, D.C., in California, in other places. This is not a barrier for us. This is an opportunity to include more people. And so we're very excited to be able to host our first Zoom event and feature a speaker, Dr. Pravika. Professor Michael Pravika is an experimental condensed matter physicist and spectroscopist who earned his bachelor's from Caltech and his master's and PhD degrees from Harvard University. He is currently a professor of physics at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where he is developing useful hard X-ray photochemistry as a means to drive novel chemistry by harnessing the highly ionizing and highly penetrating properties of hard X-rays. Dr. Pravika has graciously agreed to join this series, and what our hope is that you will engage and learn from this lecture that he's prepared, as well as take this as an opportunity if you are interested in starting Tesla clubs in your own communities, schools, universities. This content will be made available to you should you have an interest to educate others after this presentation, and you will be able to use this content as a means to educate others and start interest in innovation and scientific discoveries and conversations in your own community. So at this time, I'm going to stop sharing so that Dr. Pravika can come on and share his screen and his presentation. And I hope in the comments that you will all welcome him, as well as after his lecture is complete. If you do have questions, we will do a question and answer through the chat box. And Dr. Pravika has graciously agreed to answer questions as well as engage you in his very, very, very relevant discussion for today.
Can everybody see my presentation?
Looks good. Looks good.
Excellent. Thank you.
We can't hear you yet. We can see your presentation.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
I can hear you.
Okay,
Great.
I apologize. I'm still learning this Zoom. And anyway, so the title of my talk is How Tesla's ideas of resonance may help COVID-19. And just to emphasize two quotes, my brain is only a receiver in the universe. And let's see, I just got, unfortunately, I'm just trying to kill the pictures on the right. Let me see. Okay. Anyway, the point is that from which we can obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. And I've not penetrated into the secrets of the core, but I know it exists. And then even more importantly, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And so I'm going to start this talk off with the idea of Tesla's idea of tuned resonance, tuned circuits. And that's why I really consider him the father of the radio. You can see his invention here on the left that basically says the whole story. You have a transmitter that is a tuned circuit that transmits at a characteristic frequency. In a typical FM station, it might be something like 106.9 megahertz FM frequency modulation. And then you have on the right of this patent, B prime, you can see the receiver, and the receiver is picking up tune to that transmitting frequency. And the genius of Tesla was that he realized that in the real world, when communication, radio frequency communication became all ubiquitous, all over the place, he realized that then everybody would talk and nobody would be able to hear each other because they'd just get a bunch of static and noise. And so the idea of the tuned resonance was to transmit at specific frequencies and then receive at those specific frequencies, essentially so that all the other noise would be filtered out and it would give a much more pristine signal. So all of modern communications are based on Tesla's ideas of tuned resonance circuits. And of course, the advantage of tuned resonance also, as we see in the digital versus the analog TV, is that you have much more narrow bandwidth, so much less power is required to send a signal. And then by the filtering techniques developed by Tesla and subsequent, then you can, of course, it's much less signal to noise, a much better signal to noise, much less noise. The idea of resonance is simple. You can see this picture of a mother pushing her child on a swing. Everybody knows when you push at the right frequency, the amplitude of the swing increases. If you go out of phase, of course, you can stop the swing. So the idea of resonance is driving a system, some sort of a natural system or man-made, human-made system at a specific frequency where that is a natural frequency, a resonance frequency, so to speak, of the system. And so then it absorbs very in a tuned, in phase, proper way, and then you add energy. So of course, Tesla had ideas. He claimed he might be able to split the earth. Fortunately, he didn't do that. But the idea is that by basically finding the key frequencies to excite any system, including the earth, including downtown Manhattan, you could excite and add energy at this key frequency, and then you could elicit a lot of change in that system, either for positive or negative purposes. On the bottom here in the center, you can see the idea, again, transmitter sends radio waves. Your audio waves are mixed in with the radio waves because the radio waves propagate much better in the atmosphere. And then you have a tuned receiver on the right, a radio receiver that picks up and is tuned. That's what you're doing when you're dialing in. You're setting some value of the inductance or the capacitance of your tuned circuit to the transmitter frequency so that all the other frequencies are essentially squashed out. On the lower left, that's a typical basic schematic for a radio. And so again, that was Tesla's idea. That was his patent in the late 1800s, circa 1899. And so that's basically the essence of radio. So most people don't realize, but in fact, NMR, or nuclear magnetic resonance, which is also was sort of expanded to magnetic resonance imaging and even electron spin resonance, all essentially use Tesla's ideas of a tuned transmitter and a receiver. In the case of NMR, typically the coil itself acts as the transmitter, and it also receives energy from processing spins such as protons, and therefore, which of course constitute water, which of course is the main ingredient of life. And so that was essentially what enabled NMR and MRI to work, is basically this idea of a tuned resonance. And so that's Tesla. And myself, for my PhD thesis, I worked on NMR at very high pressure. You can see in the figure 2 diamonds squeezing on a gasket. Inside the gasket, we had hydrogen or other materials that have protons, of course. And you can see what we call a one-turn inductor. There was a cover inductor on top of it and a capacitor and then coax. And so what this system did electrically was to drive, behave as a transmitter, and then excite resonance in these processing spins. And then the processing spins induced a voltage back into the inductor, and then we basically coupled that and amplified it to get signal. And my first ever work that I ever did, my first scientific publication, I just was very fortunate. I discovered an effect called the Altadena Effect, which basically is actually used today for enhancing signals in organic chemistry and also in MRI for patients to have stronger signals to see things like tumors inside their lungs. And you can see on the left, the quantum mechanical diagram. Alpha represents a spin up proton, beta represents a spin down, and the protons have their own spin. And so from a quantum perspective, even in quantum mechanics, we have this idea of resonance. And on the right, you can see a graph, basically a spectrum of this Altadena effect in ethylbenzene. And the up represents spins that are giving energy, the down, spins that are giving energy. The down phase peaks are spins that are absorbing energy. And basically you can see on the left, the singlet, there's a dot, that's where all the population starts of protons. And then we adiabatically change the magnetic field and you get this total net alignment. So for me, Tesla's ideas of tuned resonance, in this case, resonance being resonant frequencies that these protons are processing in the presence of a magnetic field, are very critical. And in fact, they form the foundation of spectroscopy. And so again, coming back to Tesla's famous quote, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And so physicists, and of course other scientists, spectroscopists, seek to ascertain and predict natural frequencies of any system, molecular systems, human systems, Earth-based systems, geosystems, etc., based on this concept of spectroscopy and varying the frequency and finding where that system will absorb these natural frequencies. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to transition from Tesla's radio frequency regime into the X-ray regime, which is all on the electromagnetic spectrum. So for the past 16 years, I've been, actually more like 14 years, I've been developing useful hard X-ray photochemistry as a new way to do science. And so these are some of the facilities I've done experiments at. The Canadian Light Sources in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and on the left. And there I am at the far infrared beamline at the Canadian Light Source. And in the right, that's where I did a bulk of my experiments at the Advanced Photon Source in Chicago, Illinois, which is the nation's brightest X-ray source. And one of the beam stations there, the powder diffraction beamline in the lower right, 16 IdB. And I was very fortunate because I had a lot of beam time there. And one of the things we found when we studied materials is that the X-rays can have very powerful effects on damage. And of course, this has been known since Tesla probably ever produced the first X-rays. And by most scientists, it's seen as kind of a nuisance, except maybe by people who treat tumors, cancerous tumors. Then they do want X-ray damage, induced damage. And that's in and of itself, radiotherapy is a whole field of science. So X-ray induced damage has plagued these crystallographers for decades, but we say, let's take the bull by the horns and let's actually harness the highly ionizing, highly focused, and highly penetrating properties of hard X-rays, which are energetic X-rays, greater than 7 kiloelectron volts, to initiate acatalytic in situ decomposition and athermal, by the way, synthetic chemistry for useful benefit. And so here's the first X-ray induced reaction I kind of investigated. Potassium perchlorate, which is a potassium chlorate, which is a oxidizer. You irradiate a powder in a simple capillary, and sure enough, you see popcorn effect where the crystals kind of get agitated in the presence of strong X-rays, and you release a KCl, which is light, salt, and oxygen. And so we realized that this could be a beautiful way, without catalysts, without any significant heat input, to drive novel chemistry. And so there are many things we've discovered. One brief thing I'll touch on is we could make, for example, this is a diamond anvil cell. You're looking through one of the diamonds are squeezing on a gasket. That's what you see. We call this a keyhole gasket in the center. And you can see in the upper left, that's ammonia borane, which under irradiation releases hydrogen. And then in the lower right, that orange material is actually all oxygen, which was released from KClO4, or potassium perchlorate. And so the orange oxygen actually turns colored when it's under pressure. So this is at something like 50,000 atmospheres of pressure. And so you could actually, in the one spot where I have one arrow on the top pointing to, we irradiated to release hydrogen. In the lower right, there's a small spot where in the top figure, there's a bottom arrow that points to it in the orange. And so it released oxygen. Oxygen actually flows everywhere. It's very mobile, even under high pressure. And so we found that we could actually produce water near where the hydrogen was released. And so interestingly enough, one would expect that if hydrogen and oxygen get close to each other, it doesn't take much for them to blow up. In this case, actually, it was very civilized chemistry. We actually released hydrogen, released oxygen, and where the hydrogen and oxygen kind of mixed, under the influence of the X-rays, we formed water, but nothing blew up. So it's kind of a new way to do chemistry in a very slow time scale. And so you can observe all sorts of interesting metastable states of matter. We also found that beyond just simple decomposition and simple synthesis, H2 plus O2 going to H2O, we could actually form new materials. And so in this case, we irradiated strontium oxalate. The way you know about oxalates are calcium oxalates are the main constituent of kidney stones. So in fact, this is sort of a organic-ish based type of compound. And so here we're irradiating at about 16 kiloelectron volts of energy, which is a pretty reasonable for a hard X-ray. And due to an interesting series of electron transfer reactions, we formed a new material. So you see on the right there, upper right, there's you're looking through a diamond, and you've got the white powder in the center of strontium oxalate. And then we're actually sending X-rays from the top down through that powder, and we irradiate it, and you can see the streak of damage, which is actually X-ray induced polymerization. And there's a strong energy dependence based on that. So pressure, energy, mixture of components, all of these add into a beautiful new crucible, if you will, to create novel chemistry. And so we argued it's a new material. We called it doped polymeric carbon monoxide, or doped solid CO. And in the left here, this figures of what it looks like. It's kind of like beer bottle glass. It's very tough, rugged. It's obviously radiation hardened because by definition, it's been made by radiation. And the proposed chemical routes of synthesis I show on the top there, the oxalate breaks down by X-rays, only X-rays, into strontium carbonate and carbon monoxide, and then being in a confined with modest pressure, say 500 atmospheres of pressure, we polymerize the CO. It opens up all the triple bonds to make a new material. And we published this in Chemical Physics Letters. We've also shown that X-rays can make new materials that have never ever been seen before. Cesium superoxide is known, but when we irradiated cesium oxalate, we found under pressure that we could actually form a new structure of that cesium oxide, superoxide, and you see that in the lower left, and that had never been reported before. So the amazing, in a way, one way to look at the X-rays is they're much higher energy than your conventional means of synthesis, which typically might be UV, even soft X-ray, and maybe a little bit of temperature and pressure. In our case, we are way overcoming any sort of activation barriers in terms of synthesis. So basically, we're accessing novel regions of pressure and temperature, thermodynamics phase space, I should say more accurately, in the free space diagram. And that's going to give us new materials that nobody's ever seen before. So useful hard X-ray photochemistry enables novel material synthesis, novel physics and chemistry, and of course then, as a consequence of that, novel devices, which may actually aid in the earlier comment, the Tesla declaration of energy independence, because this might be a wide bandgap. Well, it has evidence as a wide bandgap sensor, which may be useful for solar applications as well as high frequency, high extremes like outer space communications. So I'm going to now talk about, now that I've given you a little bit of an introduction associated with useful hard X-ray photochemistry, I have 3 ideas I'm going to just briefly talk about related to Tesla's ideas of resonance and show how we are hoping to change perspectives in the scientific world related to adding these ideas of resonance into certain areas of science where they've, how should I say, it's been underrepresented. So the first idea is to use tuned resonant hard X-rays, to use hard X-rays to create minimally damaged vaccines.
If somebody needs to mute, please mute. If somebody can mute, please, so Dr. Pavic can continue, please mute.
Please continue.
Everybody, please put their systems on mute. We're hearing you in the background.
Mute the whole
Please turn down the loudspeaker.
Walter, or if you don't cooperate, take him out.
Hold on a second, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
I'm trying right now, Nick.
Walter, you need to mute.
Circumstances with COVID-19, we've had to adjust our staff.
Okay, we're muted.
Take him out.
Okay. Okay. So using two. So the idea is that we're going to use the tuned X-rays because they create much less collateral damage and much more focused damage. So this is just a very brief physicist perspective of a virus. You typically have a capsid with the genetic material inside. It's not really living, but it basically hijacks the genetic machinery inside the cell, and as a consequence, then it replicates itself and replicates not only its genetic material, but the capsid, and then that, of course, reinfects people. So, and then sometimes, not always, you'll have a lipid envelope with these glycoproteins, and they're very effective in terms of attaching themselves to host cells, and then, of course, hijacking their machinery and then killing the cell and then replicating. So actually, in the past, the idea of using highly ionizing radiation is not new. It's been done before. For example, this is not intended to be any sort of a literature survey, but you can see an activation on the upper right of the tobacco mosaic virus by X-rays and breaking nucleic acids. On the bottom, well, on the left, actually, application of radiation technology in vaccine development. This is mostly a paper about using gamma rays. Gamma rays are much higher energies. They're of the order of MeVs, mega electron volts, versus KeVs, kilo electron volts. And then on the bottom right, this is sort of where we're going, is it says this is from 2020, so it's actually a recent paper, transitioning from gamma rays to X-rays for comparable research irradiation, energy matters. So I want you to remember that, because we're going to come back to that. So through my 15 years of investigation of damage, we found some fascinating aspects associated with the X-ray, hard X-rays that we use, and I would call it a sweet spot, if you will. For example, in the upper right, you can see the irradiation of, this is KClO3, and how it breaks down into KCl and oxygen. And as a function of energy, you can see a peak there. That's somewhere around 20 keVs. And this is not something that you would be able to predict with Compton scattering or photoelectric effect, because what this is this is X-rays that are interacting via the Compton effect and or photoelectric effect, but then they drive chemistry. And so you're looking at irreversible chemistry, not just ionization, but ionization or scattering leading to chemistry. And so this has actually been sorely under-investigated. And so we have actually, and then we found on the left, upper left, you can see the same thing we had mentioned about the strontium oxalate, that there are certain tuned energies that are corresponding to the K shells and other shells of these compounds, let's say of the strontium, that will produce photoelectrons in a very excellent way that will drive chemistry. And so basically the argument is that, for example, in the lower right corner, you see 25 keVs is roughly half an angstrom. When your when the energies or the wavelengths, more accurately, of the X-rays that you're using to drive the chemistry are of the order of the bond lengths, okay, or the electronic distributions within these molecules, you find these interesting resonance effects to drive the chemistry, to create the irradiation or even synthesis. So the essence on the bottom middle, you see a spectrum of a similar oxidizer that you can see near 22.5 keVs, you have a peak of the decay. Near 15 keVs, you have almost no or little decay. So can you imagine if instead of the prior thinking of X-rays as just dose, energy, put in, doesn't matter the energy per se, as long as you produce some sort of photoelectrons creating damage, if instead you say, let's be strategic. Instead of shooting an animal with a buckshot where the buckshot's going everywhere, you shoot like an assassin, you target certain molecular groups because of these resonance concepts. So for example, if let's say that curve on the bottom middle, there happens to be a nucleic acid. And let's say now I say I'm going to choose 22.5 keVs to irradiate that to maximally damage the nucleic acid. But let's say there's a similar curve to a protein, a glycoprotein on the surface of the virus, and you instead irradiate that you irradiate the whole thing, kit and caboodle, 22.5 keVs, but you can see that you're going to, I'm sorry, let's say that the glycoprotein had a minimum at 15 keVs, so you irradiated 15, you're not going to damage or minimally damage the glycoprotein. So what I'm trying to say is by choosing the energy, if you know these kinds of spectra of how the molecular damage happens as a function of energy, you can have full maximal chemical control to damage what you want. So the argument is that we're going to use tuned hard X-rays, not white, polychromatic, but monochromatic, chosen to specifically damage DNA, RNA, preferably inside the virus. Or you could also choose it to damage, let's say, certain selective groups that are on the outside of the virus. The preference, of course, would be to damage the inside. And as I've been told, one of the holy grails of virology is that very few, if any, vaccines exist for RNA-based viruses. So to an X-ray, it doesn't matter if it's DNA or RNA, it's all organic. So there's going to be this kind of behavior in terms of damaging it. Our energies are much higher than any ionization, any organic K shells of the carbon or oxygen or anything inside the DNA. So it's going to damage it. The point is to damage it strategically. So here's just a sort of just a schematic of some of the 5 nucleic acids that we're currently looking at. And cytosine, thymine, uracil, adenine, guanine, they're all basically rings. And it turns out, by fate or fortune, I've been studying molecular rings for about 15 years. You can see in the upper right-hand corner, TATB, it's an explosive. It's the only explosive authorized for nuclear weapons, triamino trinitrobenzene. It's got a beautiful, to a physicist, that looks beautiful. It's a very symmetric molecule. In the left, that picture is actually a crystal, sort of TATB. You can see it kind of adopts the hexagonal shape. And that black line is an X-ray path that went right through it at Argonne National Laboratory, the Advanced Photon Source. So it's easy. This is trivial for us to damage. The point is to damage these rings in a strategic way so we can damage the DNA or RNA, whatever's contained inside the vaccine. The second idea I'm going to talk about pertains to treating patients dying from COVID with these same tuned X-rays. And the idea is that whereas there may not be time for these patients because they're suffering, struggling with this, the question is, could we in situ damage the DNA or some component specific to the virus? Obviously, you don't want to damage the patient, but something specific to the patient, to the virus inside the patient in vivo that will selectively kill it. And not that it's going to necessarily get rid of it completely, but the point is to give the immune system a reprieve so that basically it can figure out how to develop the antibodies and develop an immunity. And it may sound like a crazy idea, but it turns out I found some articles just recently how low dose radiation could be the trick for treating COVID-19. In the upper left, this was in Forbes, May 13th this year. There's a review how radiotherapy was actually historically used to treat pneumonia. Could it be useful today? This is from 2013. So I'm not crazy. I may not be a virologist or even a biologist, but the point is that people have treated, there is a concept of radiotherapy, but here's where I can add something to it. We don't have to have as much of the collateral damage if we're just using white beam X-ray radiation, or even if it were monochromatic. Most of these X-ray accelerators are around 200 keV, way above the energies that we want to go at. We're more like in the 5 to say 100 keV range. So the point is, by irradiating strategically tuned X-rays, we far reduce any collateral damage on the patient, and we amplify our damage on the virus. The third idea that I'm going to talk about has to do with sound waves. And can we look at resonant sound waves produced by, actually ascertained by a patient's cough to be effective in helping the clearing the lungs from detritus, phlegm, and other fluids to aid in oxygenating the lungs of COVID-19 patients? Anybody, I'm sure all of you have been in some sort of a concert, a nightclub, or somewhere where you have big speakers, and have you ever felt those vibrations that just penetrate to inside your chest cavity, and you feel that resonance, you feel that vibration? That vibration actually helps to push out fluid, to loosen mucus. Anything that may be stuck in the lungs could be, I believe, very helpful in terms of assisting people suffering from these plugged up alveoli, plugged up lungs. And it turns out that there are some inventions. Here's a paper from 2018, the influence of the vibrolung as a percussor on pulmonary function in releasing sputum from cystic fibrosis patients. And it's also been used in people with COPD, the pulmonary obstructive disorder. But the thing is, if you look here, okay, so they mention in the lower left, continuous hash of random simultaneous frequencies from 5 to 1200 hertz. The human audio spectrum is about somewhere from 20, 25 hertz all the way up to about 20 kilohertz. And so number one, you've got a reduced spectrum here that they're using this. Number two, It's random. They're not strategically driving resonances inside the chest cavity. They're just putting in a bunch of sound to help reduce, basically release the phlegm and get the cilia and in the bronchial tubes to kind of push it out so that the patient can alleviate herself from it. So the point is, there are devices. There's a lung flute, which is passive. You blow through it, but again, it's very low frequencies. It's not strategic in terms of selection of frequencies. So here's what we did recently. My student and I, we took a cough spectrum, recorded it on a speaker, digitized it onto a digitizing oscilloscope, and you can see that the two of us have very different cough spectra. I suffer from asthma, so I have different resonant frequencies than my student. My student's younger than I am, so his lungs presumably are going to be much more flexible than mine. So every human being, this is almost, you could almost think of it like a thumbprint. We have a different cough spectrum. So we took a Fourier transform of that cough spectrum, and that's what you see here as a function of frequency, the different peaks and valleys in terms of where the chest, various frequencies that are resonating within the chest cavity. So the cough is very similar to a free induction decay. For any of you who know NMR or MRI, you give a pulse, or if I bang a piano all at once, then, just a simple piano, if I bang that all at once, all the strings of the piano vibrate. And so then I get the resonant strings inside the piano, and I can collect that and digitize it and then take a fast Fourier transform, and that tells me all the strings in the piano. So by taking a cough, it's the same idea. It's a very transient impulse, and then you're collecting all the resonant frequencies associated with the chest/lung cavity. So I want you to come away from this talk with a simple message that there's an underlying theme here. In these particular fields of science, acoustics, particularly pertaining to the medical field, and of course, X-ray radiotherapy, you see this idea where people are seeing X-rays or the acoustic waves, they're just energy. Okay, so we don't care necessarily about the frequency of the energy, as long as there's some coupling that it can drive some sort of damage or some sort of resonant, some sort of excitation that releases something, that initiates an effect. And what I'm trying to say is that Tesla's ideas of resonance, that every single system of nature has a natural set of natural resonance frequencies. And the point is to drive that system with those natural frequencies. You can be much more efficient, much more effective in eliciting the change that you're trying to elicit. So where do we go from here? The Canadian Light Source is excited about these studies. And so they've actually harnessed, allotted an enormous amount of beam time. We have 3 different beamline facilities that are going to help us. There's hard X-ray for the damage. Then we're going to characterize with mid-infrared and far infrared. So and I've applied for beam time at the Advanced Photon Source. So keep the fingers crossed. That would be the best place because that's the strongest X-rays I can get at the moment. And so what we want to do is measure those damage spectra of the nucleic acids so that we can find the best energies to tune to damage the genetic material contained in the viruses. Once we get this, and we're going to start around July 21st. We're actually doing preliminary experiments with the far infrared, but then July 21st, they're going to turn on the beam. Unfortunately, they're not, the borders are shut, the international frontier, so I'm actually doing this remotely. So it's kind of fascinating time for me. I've supervised experiments remotely, but not this level of personnel and people. So once we get that data, then we're hoping to do synchrotron X-ray damage studies of actual viruses. Obviously, we won't start with COVID because you need an incredible amount of permission and teamwork to help that, ability to get the virus, for example. But we're going to probably look at something like the tobacco mosaic virus, lambda phages. Those are very common, well-known viruses, well-studied. But then we're going to look at damaging the genetic material or other material within these viruses and using this idea. Then eventually, if things work out, then we might look into human trials. So right now, we're in the position where we're looking for collaborators, pulmonologists, radiologists, virologists, and of course, industrial financial partners. Science is not cheap, but if you think about the trillions of dollars the whole world has lost, it seems to me this would be a good investment to do this kind of research. And then, of course, something that we could try today is looking at acoustic resonance tests, oxygenation. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I keep looking through all these papers and I cannot find any connection with these poor people dying from, lack of oxygen, coughing, can't even cough, they're so weak. And the point is, if we could drive the resonance frequencies by literally putting a speaker on their chest or something nearby, get their cough, if you can resonate those frequencies, you could actually help them with their coughs. And I think that's one of the key reasons people are dying is the alveoli are getting plugged up with fluid and it's not able to drain. That's why things like the supine versus the prone position were very important because it's allowing the lungs to drain. So why can't we do this now using acoustic or tuned acoustic waves? Pardon me. So I'd like to acknowledge all the Tesla groups, particularly the Tesla Science Foundation, for inviting me to talk about these ideas. I'd like to also thank the Serbian Royal Academy of Arts and Sciences for giving me their Tesla Medal in 2013 for all of my efforts to promote one of the world's greatest geniuses. And of course, I have a GoFundMe for this experiment. So I'd like to thank all the people that have supported me for that. So scientists would like to thank you for your attention, and I'll open up the floor for questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pravika. We are so honored to have you speak of all these technologies for us today. And right now, I think the best way to do this would be for people to put their questions in the chat box, and we will either read them out loud or Dr. Pravika will respond to them.
I'll respond live. It's faster.
Great. So we would love that.
Yeah.
May I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Okay. Dr. Pravika, you were talking about the vaccines produced using hard X-rays.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite clear to me, for example, if you irradiate a subject and find that resonant frequency, how it can kill a virus or change the chemical bond, break a bond or make a bond, release energy, overcome the activation energy barrier. But I didn't understand, how would you achieve the healing effect by irradiating material which will be used as a vaccine?
Okay, I'm sorry. So let me clarify. The idea is to irradiate a live virus to inactivate it.
Okay.
And the point is that live virus that's now dead, and let's put that in quotes because viruses aren't really alive, but the point is it forms the vaccine. So the problem with modern, and again, I'm not a virologist. I don't make vaccines, but from talking to virologists, one of the biggest problems with vaccines are people typically chemically alter them, and that will change, the quaternary structure of your proteins. Anything with pH will change. Everything the way it's structured. So, to a physicist, an X-ray looks like a beautiful kind of a supramolecular crystal. So you don't want to damage the external properties of that crystal because it's the body that will, the body will look at the outer part, the capsid, and generate the antibodies, the lock and key antibodies that will basically corral the virus so it can be eaten up by, phagocytes or different white blood cells. It's been a long time since I studied this, but so the idea is that we are directly creating the vaccine by irradiating the virus. And so we're damaging the virus, but we're damaging it in a minimal way. We're minimally damaging the outer coat. We're trying to damage the genetic material inside. And you don't have to damage all genetic material. You just need to damage a few nucleic acids, destroy them. So now the whole code doesn't work. So it doesn't produce those capsids when it hijacks the cellular the cellular replication machinery. Does that make sense?
So if I understood correctly, those slightly damaged viruses, which are actually not dangerous for us, but what they do in our organism, they promote our immunity. Did I understand that correctly? And
absolutely.
Then our body can fight the real culprit.
Yes. So the point is that we need to develop a technique to minimally damage the outer part of the virus so that the body can develop the immunity in a natural way. So the point is, I'm arguing that X-rays are actually, believe it or not, despite their high energies, they're a very civilized way to create minimal damage if they're targeted for certain molecular groups, certain bonds.
Thank you so much.
No problem, my pleasure. Okay, so let's see. I see a question. Can X-rays, oh, this is a great one. Can tuned X-rays find cancer as well? Absolutely. And once this crisis is over, I'm actually hoping to transition these techniques to using X-rays. There was a group, just to show I'm not completely crazy here, there was a group in the Spring 8 synchrotron in Japan where they used, I believe it was gadolinium or gallium nanoparticles, and they targeted they produced photoelectrons by absorbing near the K-edge from these nanoparticles that had gotten into the cell. For me, this is more chemistry. I mean, that's more physics. This is actually more, I'm actually strategically damaging molecular groups and not just producing photoelectrons. And let's see, okay. Royal Rife did use resonance to selectively kill bacteria. Tuned X-rays may be able to selectively kill COVID inside the lungs. I'll have to look into the Royal Rife. I don't know what resonance energies, but I can tell that what they were in specific, but I can say this, that's Tesla's idea. It doesn't matter the energy, whether it's radio frequency, infrared, sound, it's all, the whole essence is that every system has its own specific energies and natural energies. We might even call those, when you're getting at the level of infrared, modes of vibration. So let's call them modes of whatever, of some degrees of freedom. And so the point is, if you can understand those modes, and then you irradiate, you give energy to that system at those energies, you will affect dramatic change. And that's Tesla's, he was the one that really, really carried that idea to its conclusion. Let's see, so COVID does not know what it is, nor have research clearly given what it is. Well, that's a deeper question. I've spoken with some virologists, and again, I don't want to get into any sort of conspiracy theories, but you know, the thing there was a Nobel laureate from Japan who actually commented on this, that the COVID is very strange because natural viruses are typically denatured by high temperature. And that's why you heat up so much when you have a virus. Your body's actually understands that and is trying to slow denature the proteins inside the virus by the high temperature. This virus seems to resist high. You have to get something like 138 Fahrenheit before it actually denatures. And boy, I hope it doesn't get that hot here in Vegas because it's hot today. It's like 110. So there's something that, in my opinion, there's a very high likelihood it was some sort of a virus that came from nature and then ended up being tinkered with in a laboratory and then somehow accidentally got out. And so we're suffering the consequences. Let's see. Yes, I've read that there's a doctor in New Mexico who's testing resonance frequency of cancer cells as a way of destroying it. Again, absolutely. The only question is what energies. So, I found a sweet spot in the hard X-ray regime where we can selectively destroy either by absorption, K shell absorption, or by breaking bonds, just like like you would absorb, think of a bond as an antenna. And so the antenna, if it absorbs electromagnetic radiation, if it's a high energy, it's going to break up the antenna. So no question about it. This is not a new idea, the resonance. It's just what is new is that we found this sweet spot in the hard X-ray regime where the wavelength of the X-rays is comparable. That means order of factor of 10 to the bond lengths, or certainly the lengths within these molecules and unit cells within a crystal. So that's the interesting thing. And let's see. Somebody asked, are you the same Royal R. Rife who invented the system of killing and deactivating pathogenic organisms by electric waves, or produced by instruments similar to those by Mr. John Crane? No, I'm not. But I'm kind of transitioning my research now, so I'm getting into it. Yeah, I'm getting into the biophysics, and I want to see if we can figure out a way to get rid of this this horrible pandemic. Can tuned P, EMF, ELF spectrum show potential, or do energy levels need to be higher? ELF is typically extremely low frequencies. Those are more, there's a correlation, let me just explain to everybody, between X-ray wavelength and an inverse correlation and the frequency. So for extremely low frequency, you have extremely wide frequencies. That's why elephants have very low frequencies, like 20 acoustic at 20 hertz, because they're so much bigger than we are, and we have higher frequencies, 50 to 20 kilohertz. Bats, of course, and smaller animals, dogs, and birds, they hear on higher frequencies because they're smaller. So it's an inverse correlation. So ELF may help with georesonances, maybe mitigating stresses in fault lines, but it probably won't help with living systems. There you need, again, a wavelength. A cell might be of the order of a micron or less. So when you're looking at microns or less, you're looking at infrared. So that's why infrared has such a big effect on humans. That's heat, because the wavelengths are of the order of the cellular lengths, so they can absorb energy. That's the key factor. Okay, so, all right, so any other questions?
Michael.
Yes, Nikola.
We are so proud we have you in our community, American community and Serbian American community. And we plan to have big conference in January, but we don't know what's going to happen. We create Tesla Spirit Award gold medal, and you are first one who having this one from Tesla Science Foundation. Tesla Spirit Award gold medal. I will send it to you, me or Ashley.
Thank you, Nikola.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for all your, I hope you're going to achieve your dream. We're all standing behind you.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a very, very difficult time for all of us, but, you know, I believe together we can all overcome this. We put people on the moon. We can solve this COVID problem. But the key that I just want, sort of a take-home message, is that everybody needs to understand, you know, we have to think outside of the box. We have to, you know, conventional witch's brew methods of making a virus, I think we need something better. And I think this may offer an opportunity for that. Any other questions?
Well, can you all join me in please thanking Dr. Pravica for his time and his innovation and his work in the spirit of Nikola Tesla to make things better for humanity through scientific innovation, and both concentrating on problems that are relevant to us all, as well as carrying on the legacy of Nikola Tesla as a Serbian American. We appreciate you. We thank you. We know your time is precious, and in any way we can support you, let us know. As he mentioned, he does have a GoFundMe to work on this technology that is great for all of us, and we will be adding the recording of this event to our website, so Tesla clubs can access it and use it as one of our different resources for students, universities, and community groups to learn. But Dr. Pravica, please be sure to let us know if you have any other great announcements, you want to participate in our next Zoom event. I am so happy and proud that although we do many in-person events, we know that we have partners and friends and lovers of Tesla all over the world. And sometimes our events in Philadelphia, everyone can't participate in. And so this forum, although we are challenged right now in not being able to participate in our typical forums, we want to be innovative and embrace the change that is facing all of us, and make sure that we can extend opportunities to more people based on this new virtual forum. And so we hope that you all will participate with us in the future and share with your friends. And I see a lot of faces that I've seen in person. I crave and love and want to see you all in person again. I'm a hugger and I am an in-person talker, and I miss you all, and I want to see you in person again. But until we can be in person, you know, let's enjoy each other together. And this is July right now, and in August you should expect to see another event from us, either from scientists or artists or anyone else who is a lover of Tesla. So please stay tuned. And you know, love you as well, Lana. Thank you. And look forward to seeing you all again. And thank you so much. This was an experiment. And Craig DeVideo, you are really super awesome. Craig has donated hours and hours and hours of his time to making sure the work we do is archived and can be pushed forward. Nikola, who is awaiting the birth of his grandson any moment now. And you know, we were hoping he would be born on Tesla's birthday, but we know he is in the spirit of Tesla no matter what. And so we look forward to the amazing things your grandson will be doing in the future, Nikola. And Nikola, can you close us out with some words of wisdom?
I'm so amazed, guys. I'm really glad, and thank you very much for everybody to being today with us. I know everybody, it's Saturday, it's nice weather outside, everybody have to do something, and nobody don't want to sit next to the computer. But special thank you to Dr. Pravica to disclosing all these beautiful things to us, and we all gonna be a little bit more motivated to work as you, our teacher. And yeah, Craig, thank you. Ashley, wonderful work. Hope next month, if anybody have good idea who you guys want to see next month, that would be great. Write to Ashley or me or Craig. Yeah. Thank you guys. Thanks a lot.
And we're going to close out with some music from Divine Hand Ensemble, one of our partners in education and utilizing the invention of the theremin, which is based on wireless technology from Nikola Tesla and the oscillator.
And resonance, by the way.
And Dr. Pravica, I coming from the media arm of the Tesla Science Foundation, being here for the last 10 years around these wonderful people that have been trying to reintroduce Tesla to the world, I personally want to thank you. And if there's something that the media arm of the Tesla Science Foundation can do for you to help you promote what you're doing to get your message out, you have a direct line to me. So give me a call anytime. I'll be glad to talk you through it and see if there's a way we can all help you. Okay?
I'm very grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your help. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you from everyone at the Tesla Science Foundation. This is Mano DeVito with the Divine Hands Ensemble. Thank you. Thank you all. You're all welcome to sign out. Have a great weekend. We love you for the Tesla Science Foundation. Thank you all.
Awesome work. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. See you again next month.